Well, hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Faith Greater Than Fear. We have pivoted, as you have, in this year of 2020 because of this little virus thing called COVID. It has radically changed our lives. And as people of faith, there has been change that we want to highlight in these episodes that we hope will encourage you and those in your family and your community. So we get to talk to men and women near and far, both locally here in the US and sometimes even internationally, about how their faith is making a difference in this very unprecedented time. And today I have a great opportunity and pleasure to introduce to you our guest, none other than my dear friend, Kirk Hayes. Kirk, welcome.
Thank you, Mike. Good to be here with you.
Absolutely. So Kirk is in Houston, Texas. He and I have worked in Kenya together. We have worked side by side in church planting and in having a lot of fellowship with our brothers and sisters in Kenya, and even helping start the regional office of GNPI's office there in Nairobi, Kenya. So indebted to my brother in terms of the faith I have has been sharpened by him. Memories I have been blessed by him. And so, like a family member, I look forward to, almost like a biological brother, to have this conversation with you, Kirk. So tell our viewers a little bit about where you're at in Houston. Tell us about your lovely wife, Susan, and your boys, so we get a feel of what your family's like, and then the ministry parts will come later.
All right. Yeah. So my wife, Susan, and I have been here going on, 12? Into our 12th year as serving as president of South Houston Bible Institute, and saving, I guess, more of that for later. And Susan, she's a speech therapist over in Sugar Land, and great ministry and work there. It's not just her paycheck. It really is ministry, as many of you know, when you're serving in public sectors like that. And then our three sons, grown up now, of course, 30, I always have to stop and think, but roughly 30, 35, and 34, 33 years of age. And the first two, Ben and Ryan, and their families work in Malawi, Africa. And we just got Ben and Becca off. Almost didn't make it yesterday, but they got rerouted and are on their way to Malawi. And Ryan and Justine will go in about 8 days, and Ty and Amy are not far from us. They were in Uganda. He was in Uganda, but now over in Sugar Land, about 45 minutes away. So we finally have one of them close to us.
So 3 sons, 3 daughter-in-laws, 6 grandchildren.
Yes.
And all 6 are going to be living again far away, and we'll talk about this a little bit later, in the country of Malawi, back in Africa. Let's talk for just a minute, Kirk, because I know many of us continue to be worried about COVID and continue to worry about what it's going to do to us. We are looking at someone who is a COVID survivor. Tell us a little bit of your experience and some of the stuff that you went through, just to let people not to be scared, but to say, hey, there is the ability that most of us are going to be the millions who survive. But how was it?
Yeah. No, well, thank you. I'm thankful that as cases go, it was relatively mild. And so I know that it can be much more difficult. Never got the respiratory issues and didn't have to be in the hospital or anything. Was the first one in our church to get it. So I was kind of, dubious honor in that way of being the first one that everybody had to stay away from. Kind of learned what it felt like to be, by no means did the family make me an outcast, but they had to avoid me. We were in the house and had been, Ryan and his family, and so having to stay away from the grandkids and everybody keeping a white berth, you begin to only scratch the surface of what someone deals with in social ostracism if they have something like that. But the main thing that has been a challenge is just losing taste and smell. And I thought it might just be for a few weeks like some of them, but it's over 3 months now. And of course, I realize there's much worse things that could happen to us. And so I always want to be grateful. But like many of us, savoring coffee and chocolate and things such as that, it's been a, a bit of a challenge losing all of that. And of course, as well as some of the practical things of not being able to help Susan out around the house, smelling this or tasting that. But the one thing that I've tried to take away from it, I thought, well, Father, this is a good chance for me to learn to be content without something that I've cherished. And I think of Psalm 34:8, taste and see that the Lord is good. I thought, okay, I don't want to waste this opportunity to grow deeper in some way. And during this time that I'm without something that I normally hold dear, deepen me through this. And so I know it's a very small form of suffering, but I'm trying to grow and learn from that. Yeah.
Well, Kirk, you highlighted things like, there's the social ostracization. We read in the scriptures about leprosy and how that was such a ostracization. And there's other things that could be equivalent to that today. Like you said, you just tasted that just for a little bit. It's not fun at all. And not having two of our wonderful senses come back is a difficult thing. Boy, we'll sure pray, and I have been, that you'll get them back. What a joy to taste. What a joy to smell. My daughter-in-law has it right now, and she has a little boy, 7 months. So I said, well, one of the things is right now, the joy is you don't smell the dirty diapers. So you can go in and surgically take care of things and not have a problem there. Did you lose weight by chance? She was saying she's lost some weight because she just doesn't feel like eating.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't have a lot to spare already, but I did. Unintentionally, lost about 10 pounds initially. And because it's like, oh, well, it's kind of a funk, to just eat without tasting anything. So I've tried to improve in that. But one of the things that I know all of us have had in mind and try to see with this, and maybe we can go on to talk in broader terms here in a little bit, but how not to let the disruption of COVID be, to uncenter us, not to disrupt us so much in our faith. And in fact, if anything, to just help make us more steady, more centered on God, with all of the social disruption that we incur as a result of it, to see ourselves as being steady through it all. And I always think of when, real quickly, just at ACU, and listened to some teaching by Landon Saunders. And the guy introducing him said, to me, Landon has always been like a big ship that moves slowly and deeply through the water, while I feel like I'm a little race boat just skimming about on the surface. And he said, I want to be more like Landon. And so that's always kind of stuck with me. And even during this time, okay, don't be tossed around by all of the disruption of COVID, but try to move a little more deeply through it, a little more calmly. So that's been helpful to me.
Good point. And we can do that in our family, and with the isolation, there is the ability to do that in our community more intimately than ever before. Let's drill that down just a little bit more with this layer on top of it. You have 3 sons, 2 of them going back, and then soon also continuing to serve in the country of Malawi, like we talked about. They're gone. So 2 sons, beloved daughter-in-law, 6 grandchildren in the midst of 2020 and COVID. How do you and your wife, as people of faith, staying centered, how do you do that with that extra layer of concern for health, concern for the government and distances that in good times are a challenge? Now you've got this going on. How do you and Susan achieve this centeredness that you talked about just a moment ago?
Not perfectly, not easily, but it has been a good exercise in trying to be steady, and kind of in an unexpected way, in that instead of them being over there through all of this and being cut off from them, they were due on furlough. First one came in mid-March, just about the time right at spring break when the distancing began here, and the other one just Ryan and them made it in kind of by the skin of their teeth before things really shut down. And so we've been spared the 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 vast gulf in between us, which couldn't be jumped because of COVID, by them being with us. So for nearly 8 months, we've had one or the other living with us. So that's been an unexpected blessing, a lot of extra time with the grandkids and all. Nonetheless, some of the factors that you mentioned still are at play, because we have that concern for them. When will they be able to return? And for months there, it was totally unknown. So trying to operate, in a trusting manner, just day to day, without knowing what their future held. And now that they are returning, I think with the previous 7 years or so, 8 years that they have been going over there, the Lord has worked on us and helped us to really commit them into his hands, so that we're able to kind of go on that prior conditioning. It's a conditioned response that helps us now to say, Lord, we know that you will continue to take care of them. And as I mentioned yesterday, I mean, it almost didn't happen with Ben and Becca getting out. As soon as they got in line at Qatar Airways, the official told them, you're not going on this flight because South Africa will not accept American passport holders. So everything was scuttled, and they ended up buying tickets on the spot. So just little disruptors like that. But again, that's a minor thing. The bigger picture of trusting them into the Lord's hands and knowing that they want to be back in the work there, that's a blessing for us. It would be different if they were like, oh my, we sure don't want to go back right now, but we have to. But so that gives us some peace as well. Yeah.
Well, you mentioned that centeredness of having contentment in the Lord personally, a centeredness of commitment of you and Susan, your wife, staying committed to the Lord, his purposes, and then committing your children to his care and to his purposes, and grandchildren now.
Yeah.
I think there's also, and I unpack this a little bit, I liked what one guy in one of our interviews recently said: if I had a chance to vote for the Nobel Peace Prize, I would give Zoom that honor of the Nobel Peace Prize, because Zoom has kept us connected. And I think there's an element of, and talk to us a little bit about how you and your wife stay connected, and the issue of, in this season, of intentionality, of connectedness to the Lord, to one another in your family, to your community, an element of intentionality that then something like Zoom allows to blossom and to help come to fruition. Talk to us about how you do your communication when they'll all be over there, or how you do your intentionality of communication with your family that's still here.
And even into the ministry at this point, or
Go for it.
yeah. So yes, we continue to be, as you mentioned, with us serving in Kenya together, and we weren't in the ancient days, 83 or 84 for us and our arrival, but there was no internet at that time. And so, communication back here was a little bit slower. So we never take for granted the blessing of technology that allows us, as they are over there. I almost every time I send a WhatsApp message, and there's response within 15 seconds or 20 seconds, it's like, wow, this is just incredible. I just never want to take that avenue of technology for granted, in the way that it has made it so easy to be connected with our loved ones when it's our children or grandchildren over there, and getting to see them. And so even before Zoom, of course, WhatsApp and WhatsApp video and all has made it so easy to stay in touch with them. And we're so grateful for that. Then as you move into even our lives here, with both of us in our work and ministry, work/ministry, like millions of others, Zoom has been just such a useful tool for Susan and her speech therapy with her kids from school whenever they've had to work from home. She's back on campus right now, just even as you've experienced there with Good News ourselves in the teaching here through SHBI, where previously everything was in the classroom. So thankful for the disruption of COVID because it's catapulted us onto YouTube in video online access in a way that we just probably, may not have been there yet. And so then instead of just having students from Houston area in person, now we're able to have them from India or they view from Africa for the DRC in Africa. And so like so many, it's one of those things that you always are amazed at how God does it. It's not that he causes the COVID, but he makes everything work together for good. And so the way that he just leverages every situation for the spreading of the kingdom. And that's just exciting to have a little part of that.
I appreciate your passion. Unpack just a little bit for our audience, SBHI, what that stands for and what exactly you do and your colleagues in this season with people locally in Houston and around the world. What's the ministry about a little bit?
Yeah, so SHBI South Houston Bible Institute, a bit of a misnomer in that it's no longer restricted locally to the South Houston area, but around for about 75 years, founded in 1946 in Kerrville by Brother G.V. Shelburne, and then my uncle B. Shelburne, who worked in Malawi for 20 years. I took over from him in 2008. And so I've directed it for 12 plus years now. But so two-prong outreach through classroom teaching, free, tuition-free studies in Bible and good studies, not because I write all of the courses. It's not a pat on the back. It's a nod to those that have gone before and have left, a good heritage of good, solid courses that are they're not degree programs, but they are certificate level that are good, rigorous studies. And so we have those in the classroom throughout the Houston area, 4 or 5 locations, as well as in Lubbock now, but then by distance learning around the world. And so now the component that's been added to it is not just email distance learning, but video courses, all of our courses having been recorded on YouTube or Zoom and put up online. And so now that students, again, from around the world can view those classroom courses where in the past they never could be in the classroom with us. So that is it in a nutshell. I love the outreach. Actually, a cousin said years ago that SHBI has been a kind of a best kept secret, a little kingdom jewel or gem that's not real broadly known, but I love being a part of it just because of its focus on unity under the lordship of Christ. And it doesn't mean we check our brains at the door and that nothing matters, but that when we are together, united by the lordship of Christ, that we have unity together. And so we love that fellowship and unity with brothers and sisters from so many different backgrounds.
Excellent. So locally in Houston, some around the world now, give us a scope of a number together about how many students do you have enrolled or? Yeah,
every semester in the classroom, we usually have between 100, 130 in the past that have been in classroom courses. And that will, stand to change some now as we're able to have more globally for our classroom courses, but that's what it has been at usually. And then distance learning throughout a year, there will be 300 to 400 that we send course material to, and at any one time, 80 to 100 who are in regular study from really a lot. We'll have 30 to 40 different countries enrolled in study at any time usually. during the year.
That's awesome. Well, we're going to note the ministry website in our footnotes here. We need to kind of land this plane, Kirk, a little bit. So, in the journey you had personally with COVID, in the journey you've had as a worker overseas and now sons following in that journey, and as a worker planting the word of God into people's hearts near and far, in person and now even more so technologically, what would you say in closing? You talked about centeredness. What else would you in your heart want to share with our viewers and say, Mike, your friends, this is what I have learned or am learning in 2020. This
Well,
is the takeaway.
yeah, I'm trying to keep it in a nutshell. I would say that one thing the Lord has put on my heart to share with students quite often is that when something like this comes our way, and so this has been unusual, yes, but there will be other things in our lives that can make us feel in some kind of a lockdown mode or distanced from others, but to just always, as people of God, as citizens of the kingdom, to not let ourselves develop a bunker mentality to where we feel like we're just hanging in there until things get better. Because the picture that Jesus gave us in, Matthew 16:18, on this rock I will build my church and the gates of hell will not prevail against it. Really a good, accurate way to rephrase that is that my church will plunder hell. And we're not his church, we're not his kingdom, to just be hanging in there like that cat in the cat poster until he comes. Rather, he wants us to be seizing the initiative and the opportunity in any thing that comes our way. And so there's nothing in COVID, of course, has not had God on lockdown. He has not been restricted or distanced. And so just trying to help us to still live with a very moving forward mindset, and helping brothers and sisters here to know what God is doing around the world during this, and then to embrace whatever degree of suffering comes our way during something like this, to embrace that suffering, because it's always in the kingdom. It's always joy and pain together, parallel tracks, and to know that suffering with him and for Jesus, it's been granted to us, Philippians 1:29, not only to believe on him, but also to suffer for him, to embrace that as a privilege, as an opportunity, in whatever little form of suffering, it may take, some bigger than others, but, whether it's loss of taste or smell, that's just a small thing, but to embrace it as followers of Jesus, and not to shun it or to be thinking, oh, I can't wait until this is over, or get back to normal, to say, no, Lord, what is the new place that you want us in during this?
Good words, good words. It's like we're all getting globally going through another birth, and we don't like birth, both the baby and the mom, neither one.
Yeah.
But we do like the outcome. There's new life and there's new transformation. And that's, I think, what you're trying to say is the Lord is doing to us as a people, as persons of his followership, and also in the world. Centeredness. I hope all of you have heard, and from my dear friend Kirk, you see why I was blessed working with this guy, man, mano to mano and person to person. And so, Kirk Hayes, thank you for sharing today. Greetings to your family. For those of you listening, if you were blessed today by what Kirk has shared, share it on your social media channels. There's a podcast version as well you're welcome to look at. We want you to be centered, and there may be some separation. There may be some little bits of suffering, but as Kirk said, face into the wind and look for the new opportunities, and don't just merely try to survive, but thrive, because as a person of faith, you can do that. So move forward in your faith. Don't live in fear. So from Kirk Hayes and myself, Mike Schrage in Joplin, Missouri, and GNPI, blessings to you, and have a great day. Bye-bye.